Hello and welcome to another episode of Codamy. Today we are building this simple tic-tac-toe game, so you can see how we can play that. If one of the player one wins the game, we print a simple page mentioning who won the game, and we also have a count of each player's past wins. So we can restart the game. We can then start again, and this time O1. So O's wins is now increased by 1. We can clear the history and we can also see the history here. So if I like this is a draw game. Nobody won. So when the game draws, we see a draw game and the wins don't change. So another thing that we see here, that we cannot click on any button or on any place that we have already ticked on, and we see a small hover pointer change, you can see. So let's go and start building this game. At this moment I have only two files. One is app.js and another one is TicTacToe.js, in which we'll be building our game. And I have some basic CSS, that is margin padding 0, border box, and font family. So let's first off let's create a the grid that we have here, this one. Okay, so for that, what I have is const. Let's first import the useState. Then we have grid, set grid, and initially it will be an array of size 9, which will be filled with nothing. And let's create some. I'll create some global variables also. Initial, this will be 0, and x player will be x, and O player will be string, or you can say character of O. And now what we can do, we replace this with initial, and let's now go ahead and create another file, and we'll name this square with a capital S, square.js. And in this square.js, what we want to do, first off, let's import this square.js here. Square from square.js, and we will go here and do this and pass this grid array inside this square component. So we can say click array, just to give it a name. Whatever you want to give it, you can give the name, it doesn't matter. And if we go here, we can now destructure this click array, and then after having this, what we can do is we can go ahead and here we can now map everything. For example, we'll do this click array dot app item index, and let's wrap them inside parentheses, item and index, and we will say it will return, each one of this will return a div, and inside this we will have it. Actually, it will be an empty div, so we cannot see anything on our page at the moment. Let's go to our CSS and give it some background, just so we can see what is happening here. Let's give it background of RGB. I already have these colors set up, so I will just type them. 0.8. I'll give it a height of 5 rem and width of 5 rem also, and save it. Let's also, we have, yes we have. Let's now give it display of flex. We cannot see it yet because we forgot to give this a class name. We will give this div a class name. This will be square, right? Yeah, so now we can see all our squares here, and we will also give this div a class name of board. Now let's go into our app CSS again and add some CSS to our board element, just so we can see it better. Board will be display flex, not display flex. Let's just make this grid, and we can say grid template columns repeat. We'll have 3 rows and we'll give them auto, and this align items. Let's just save it. Let's just save it first. Okay, we don't have anything yet. That's now grid, no, align items center, justify content center, and grid depth of some 5 pixels, and then cursor pointer. Why are we not seeing? Okay, we just need to refresh it. It does it sometimes. Okay, so what we have now, we can give our squares the pointer. Okay, now we have our basic board that we see here. So we can move it further down. Let's grab the app component, app class. Do we have the app name here? Yeah, we have, and give it a height of 100 VH, and background will be RGB 147, 192, and 192. Let's save it. We see our background color, and we will give it a display of flex just to align this into center of the screen. Display flex, align items center, and justify content center. This will center this in our screen. Okay, so other than that, what we can do is we can give this a color of white and font size of 4M, so that later when we add X and O's in our divs, this is for that time. So let's go back to our square and do a couple of things here. First off, let's add the key component, the key prop, or you can say property, because it will be giving us some warnings if we don't. So here now, what we want to do is whenever we click it, we want to see some changes here. So how can we do that? We can make a function here. We can make a function here, function handle click. Okay, and so what do we want to do now? What we want to do is whenever we click something here, we want to call this function. So let's go here and add another thing that will be on click. We will call handle click, which we will be passing from here. Handle click, and for now let's just console log something. Console.log inside handle click, and this, since this is not an arrow function, let's remove this and also remove this. My god. Okay, handle click is not defined. By handle click and click spellings are correct. Okay, we didn't destructure it here. Let's have this. So we have a handle click, and whenever we click it, let's see if we are printing anything. Yeah, whenever we print anything, we are printing this. So that means we are running the this function fine. So after that, what we can do now is we can go ahead and make this function do something in this function. What we want to do in this function is so what we are doing, we have an array, and inside this array we have 9 elements, and each of element is at this moment empty, an empty string. So what we want to do is whenever we click this, we want to print x, either x or an o inside this whatever the div that we click on. So we can do this by like this. Whenever we click our handle click, what we can do is we can pass the index from here and receive this index here. We can call this id for now, and then we can inside this go here and we can set our grid with like this grid dot map. We'll map our previous grid and we'll have these two inside. And after in mapping, what we want to do is, if we will have some kind of variable to see which player's turn it is for. Let's go create that quickly. I will have player and set player, and this will be initially false. So for player 1 this will be false, for player 2 this will be true. So we can say if player is true, we want to return x player. This x player is coming from up here, and if not, what we can do is we can return o player. So if it is clicked, it is either one of these two, and if it is not, other than the one those which are not clicked, what we can do is we can now go outside this. Okay, I forgot something. We need to match the id with this index equal to id. What this will do is it will check which one did we click. Okay, and others that we did not click, we will just simply return the item that was already inside it. So if we go here, okay, we are seeing the handle click, but we are not seeing any value printed here. That's because we are not setting any value inside our div. So what we want to do here is we want to print a value here. So you can see when we click it, we are seeing O's inside. That's because we are never changing this player button, player variable. So what we want to do is whenever we click something, we want to then set our player to whatever, basically toggle it between true and false. So if we do this and refresh, you will see we will click first, we click, then it brings O, then X, then O, then X, and like this. So let's go and see why these are not in the center. Okay, in our app.css, we will go to the square, and inside we have display flex. Let's also add align items center. This will center them vertically. That is already centered. Justify content center. This should do. Yeah, now it's okay. So we are seeing this whenever we are clicking it. So now let's also add some hover to our square whenever we are clicking it. Hover, and basically whenever we hover it, we just want something darker here. So let's just remove this RGB, just the opacity, And now whenever we click, whenever we hover, we are seeing something, the color change here. Now another thing that we want to do is we want to have this effect whenever we have clicked something. We don't want to see it again. So how can we achieve that? We can achieve that by going to our square here, and what we want to do is when we when we map our clicked array, we want to see if the item is an empty string. If the item is an empty string, we want it to, we can click it. If it is not an empty string, we should not be able to click it. Okay, so before return, what we can do is we can check if item is equal to an empty string. We will return this. So if it is an empty string, we should be able to click it, and otherwise what we want to do is we want to basically return the same div, but we don't want it to have this on click, so we don't want to click it. Okay, so there is something wrong. I must have these two should be going here. Okay, so there are some mix up with the brackets. Let me see. Okay, so now there was some mix up with the brackets, so it is fixed now. So what is happening now is whenever we have clicked something, it no longer has any on click. So you can see now even if I click it, it doesn't show anything. So we can now go ahead and give this another class name of clicked, so that we can just style it in some other way in our CSS file. So if we go here and copy this, and rather than having hover, we can say dot clicked. If it is clicked, what we want to see is we want to change the background color, to something 63, 118, and 170, and we'll also give it cursor of not allowed. So you can see now that whenever we click something, we cannot click it anymore, and we see the cursor turning to a not allowed sign, and we also see the color change of our grid div. So let's now go ahead and add some life to our game. So what we want to do, first off, we want to see whether or not our game is over. So game will be over in three different scenarios. First will be if somebody wins, and obviously X wins, Y wins, O wins, or it draws. Let's create an array with win combinations. We will see this will be an array of arrays. So these will be the combinations of winning combinations. If either of these indexes have the same, or these indexes have the same string inside our divs, so the sum of one of the two players has won the game. So what we want to do now is whenever we can go here and add some more states to inside our TicTacToe component to find out whether or not our game has been finished. So we can add game finished, set game finished. It will be a use state, and initially it will be false because obviously in the beginning the game is not finished. And then we will have another state to draw, set draw, and this will also be a use state, and this will also be initially false. I misspelled const here, const. Okay, so we have these false. Sorry for the misspell. Okay, so how can we check if we have drawn something, the game is drawn? That's like the easiest one. So let's do that one first. So we can like have some function here that will be, let's create the function first. Function is game over. We will check if the game is over. So first let's go ahead and check if it is draw game check. So how can we do that? We can check the grid array if the grid includes initial. So until and unless all the grid has been replaced, all the initials, all the empty strings have been replaced by either X or O's, so we will say that there are empty tiles in our game. So what we want to do is we will check if it contains initial, and we will have a not sign because we are checking for draw game. And what we want to do is we will if it is if it is draw, we will set draw to true, and let's also console.log draw just to see if it is working. So if I click all these, so we don't see the draw game. That's because I haven't called this function here. Let's call it, and it is giving us some error. Let me see what it is. Too many re-renders. So basically and we will also do one more thing here, because what it is doing is it is basically checking for it just keeps checking it. So we will set draw, and we'll also set the game to be finished, and we will only run this when the game is not finished. So we can say if game is not finished, then only run this function, this check. So if we save it, refresh it, we should be fine. Yeah. And if all of these are filled, we see a draw, and this inside clip is coming from here. Let's remove this. Okay, so we are seeing the draw here. Okay, so that's perfect. So when we have look, so now let's go ahead and check if one of our two players has won the game. So how can we do that? That's also very easy. Let's first go ahead and check for X win check. What we can do is we will just go through our win combinations array. Let's do that by having a for loop. It has 8 total combinations. We will go through all of them, and we will say if grid win combinations, or win combination, what did I say, win combination I first one for and it's zeroth, for that means this 0 where I'm accessing this 0, and if it is equal to X player and I will also check the other two. So basically what we are doing is we are checking for each one of these this. So we want to check this is equal to X, this is equal to X, and this is equal to X. If these three are equal to X, what we want to do then is we want to set game to finished, sorry, true, and we will say console.log x1, and we will return from our function right here. Sorry, right here. Okay, so let's refresh, and this X. So you can see that whenever we have 3 X's in a row, or even if we have in the column, we will see, oh sorry, messed up. We will see that we have X1. So we can do the same thing for O, and we just replace these with O player and change this to O. Refresh this. Let's now go ahead. So we can see now O has won. So that's the checks that we needed to for to compute whether or not the game is finished. And what we want to do after that, we want to see if the game has finished. What we want to do, we want to what we want to do is let's have some more function. Let's just collapse this one first. Let's create another function that we will be calling function restart. Sorry, let's go ahead and first create the button that we had in here. Let's go, if we had this page, let's go ahead and create this page first. So how can we do that? We can, let's add another file. We will say endgame.js. Let's rfce, and let's go ahead and import it here. Import, save it, and game from endgame, and we will render it endgame. We will render this component here. At this moment it is returning nothing. So let's create the return. Let's create the end game stuff here. So what we want to have here is we want to do two things. What do we have here? We have this text and this text, and we have two buttons. Let's first create the restart button. We will have a button with a class name of btn, and this will have the text of restart game inside it, and we will also add an on click, and if we click it, it should call the restart game function, which we will receive from our TicTacToe game. And restart, let's go here and create a function. Let's create a function here, function restart game, and let's leave it empty for now. So we will have a restart game, and inside we pass a restart game, so it doesn't give us any more any kind of errors. So what we want to do in this inside this function is, whenever what we want to restart the game, basically we just want to empty this grid array. So we can go ahead and call the set grid, and basically just do this all over again. And what we, another thing that we want to do is, we can set game finished to false again, and if it is draw, we can set draw to false again. So if I click this, so you can see it is now restart. Click, so someone won already. So okay, so we have the button. So if what we can do is, well, so you can see here that we only see this page when somebody wins or the game is over. So we can do that. We already have a variable that tells us whether the game is finished or not. What we can do is, we can utilize it here until the game finished. What did we have? And we will say and close this curly bracket here. So what this essentially means is, unless it is true, so we don't need this not operator here. We just, if this is true, we want to show this. If it is not, we don't want to show this. So if I restart, you can see the restart button is gone, and if you can see whenever somebody wins, this button appears here. So what we can do is, we can go to our app CSS and grab the let's style the stuff that we have in here. Let's first, I think let's first create the other divs also before we go ahead and start styling. So we'll give this class name of end game screen, and inside this we have, so basically we should have a span tag that should tell us which player has won the game. So we'll need to have some more variables imported from this TicTacToe file to this basically this component, the end game screen component. So that will those will be basically what the player, to find out whether which player has won, and another will be draw, whether or not the game has drawn. So let's go and have them here, player draw. So what we want to do here is, if the game is draw, if the game is draw, is not draw, we can have span tag, and inside it we can say, now if it is not drawn and the game has finished, so what does that mean? Somebody has won. So we can check which player, and if player is true, we will say O1, and if it is false, we will say X1. O1, and we will say X1. Why is this giving us an error here? Because I have not closed this bracket. And we will also give this class name of win text, and if it is drawn, we will see this. So you can see, okay, it is draw, but why do we not see the draw? Okay, so this is the win stuff. Okay, so when it is not drawn but somebody has won, okay, so we see the X1. So now let's create the text for if it is draw. So if it is draw, what we can say is, we can have the inside here, what we can say is, we can just simply say draw game. Okay, and then we have another function, another button, and this one will also have the same class name, and will also have another button. Okay, so let's not add it for now. Let's just go ahead and style this. So what we want to do is, we want to basically have this end game component to fill our screen. So for that, let's grab the end game screen, and say display flex align items center, justify content center, and position will be absolute, because I don't want it to like mess up our original game screen. Absolute, and it will be on top 0 and left 0, and height will be complete screen VH, and width will also be covering the whole screen W, and the background will be some light blackish. So let's get background RGBA, basically 0, 0, 0, this black, and let's add some opacity like this. So restart game. So you can see whenever somebody wins or it is drawn, we see the draw game and restart game button. So let's go ahead and add some CSS to our button now. Button, let's finish this game so that we can see our game. So we will add some I added the square class name. Let's add some background, and background will be RGBA 27 255 255. We don't need RGBA here. Let's ahead. Color will be RGB 63 118 170, and then we will have border 2 pixels, 2 pixels, solid, and RGB 63 118 1170. So I'll just add some CSS. You can copy if you want. I will just fast forward this. Font size to rem, margin bottom and RAM, adding 10 pixels, 14 pixels. Cursor will be pointer, and border radius will be 5 pixels. Transition will be 0.3 SPs out, and last will be max height, and that will be 7 mm. So we have our button here, and then we can add our hover. Inside of hover, what I just like to do is I just flip these colors, so the background color will now be the color of the text, and the border, and the basically the colors will be inverted. What did I do? Yeah, so why not? Why is it not working? Okay, so it is working. So now let's go ahead and grab the win text. Win text, color white, and font size will be 5 rem. Okay, so this is very ugly. Okay, what did I do? End game screen, and did I forget? Okay, flex, and let's add flex direction to column here. Okay, much better now. Okay, so we will restart the game, and if somebody wins, we have this x1. Okay, so now what we can do is the last thing that we want to do is we want to add the history. So we will go back to our this screen, which is the end game, and inside this what we want to do is we want to add this span. Okay, so after this we will have another span, and inside this what do we have? Span tag, and this will be class name of win history, and inside it what we want to have it first, we want to check who won the game. So x's wins. Okay, so we will have to have another state here. Let's first create that const win count and set win count, and initially this will be state, use state, and initially it will be an object, and inside the object we will have x whose value will be 0 and o whose value will be 0. So this basically represents the win count. So x's win count is initially 0, and y o's win count is 0 initially. So whenever we are where we were here, so here when we were checking, when we check that if x has 1, what we can do is we can call the set win count function, and we will have the previous values win count, and then what we can do is we can add the win count x plus 1. So here what we are doing is essentially just copying over this o and replacing this x with the whatever the value of the x was plus 1, and we will also do the same thing here, only change this to this. Okay, and now what we can do is we can just pass this win count from this to here, and receive this in our end game. And now what we have is we have access to our how many games did x win and how many games did o win. So x's wins we can say wins is whatever is whatever win count dot x, and we will have a line break here, and O's wins are whatever the count is for win count dot O, and O. Okay, so let's go here and see what we have. So we do have X's and O's wins. So let's go now and like create have some win history. Basically does the same thing, only this text will be slightly smaller. Let's make this 2rem. Yeah, and add some margin to on top and bottom. Let's 2rem and 0. Let's see how that looks. Okay, this is fairly okay. Okay, so we have the same, we have this. Okay, now what we have is we basically have another button here that can clear this count. So let's go to our end game and add another button, and this will say clear history, and this will have another, let's create another function here, function, this will be clear history, and inside this clear history what we want to do is we want to just call we just want to call this set win count, and inside this we will pass the same thing. And now let's pass this function to our end game here, and let's receive this inside our end game component and pass it here. So we basically now have two buttons, and if I click this, you see that it goes it is now 0. Another thing that we want to do is whenever we click this clear history, this should restart our game. So here in our clear history we can call the restart game function. So essentially if I click this, this goes away and I have a simple game. So last thing that we can now add is this history in the home, or you can say the game itself. So that should be fairly simple. We will just go here and add a span tag that the same way we did here, and this should be fine. Clear history, yeah, we have it here. So if we now play the game, we should be able to see the wins. Okay, restart. So O has won 1 time and X has won 0 times. I hope you enjoyed it. I also enjoyed making this fun little game. So this basically gives you a lot of information about props and how can we transfer data from one function, one component to another, and how can we go back to the mother component from a child component. Basically a lot of things that you can that can be taken away from this small project that can be learned. So until next time, bye bye.